Football's laws surrounding handball are about to change. An IFAB statement here, as the interpretation of handball incidents was not always consistent due to incorrect applications of the law, the members confirmed that not every touch of a player's hand or arm with the ball is an offence, adding, accidental handball that leads to a teammate scoring a goal or having a goal-scoring opportunity will no longer be considered an offence. Now, the clarifications will come into force from July 1st. Glad to see these changes being made, Craig?
Actually, I am with the accidental handball, particularly when we've seen goals that have been disallowed and brought back by a ball that is ricocheted off an attacker's arm into a teammate's pathway through no fault of his own, 25, 30 yards from his goal. And VAR's gone back and micromanaged this and looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And you know, I'm glad to see, and we just seem to be doing this with all the laws now, where IFAB and all the cronies are having to go back and rewrite the words and try and reinvent the wheel here. But in the handball one, or the accidental handball, I am at least pleased that we're going to be going now to allow goals that have clipped an arm through no fault of a player's own, and where clearly they've not tried to gain an advantage. So I think, in my opinion, some common sense on this front.
Problem though, Needum, is that David Ellery, the IFAB technical director, has said that handball will always be a problem in the sense that it will always be subjective. So is this just making it a grey area all over?
Perhaps it is, yeah, but I think it's something which we're more used to, because I think when they got to a point where it felt extremely strict, people were feeling very, very disappointed, because you could see certain things which, as far as that subjectivity goes, would lean heavily towards the side of, well, he clearly didn't mean that. But, you know, in the same breath, the point that they make is a good one, because it is subjective. And, you know, from having played not that long ago, there were so many contentious decisions where somebody, like a referee, is telling you you've done something with intent, which you're like, well, no, I haven't, but he's got the final say on it. So hopefully there won't be too many issues where he's sort of caught in the grey area and it seems quite obvious. But I guess ultimately it's a positive sign, because they've reviewed something, seen that it's not really working, and gone to an older style system, which people are more used to. And as a consequence, I suppose you might get more of a sort of show of support from the people who make up the game, both on and off the field.
Ian, with this change, Josh Madger's goal would not have been disallowed against Spurs. Is this just what people want? That's obviously coming in next season. Do they just want more consistency in this area?
I think what people want is some common sense. I think VAR generally has become way too intrusive, like a nosy policeman going through with a fine-tooth comb on every single goal. That's not what it was invented for. It was invented to stop major, and I'll underline that, major errors occurring. And we're getting some very silly ones, like the Phil Jagielka red card the other night for Sheffield United. There was no need for VAR to get involved in that at all. It had been perfectly well handled by the referee. I think he got it right first time. Now, going back to the Fulham one, that's cost them a point last night, because it was the correct decision as the law stands. But Mario Lemina has got his hand by his side. The ball is cannoned against it, rebounds off to Majar, who equalises. The goal's disallowed because there was an accidental handball in the build-up to the goal. From July, the goal will have stood. That's too late for Fulham. They might go down for that point that they didn't get last night. So it's a crazy situation, because that wouldn't have been handball by Lemina if he was standing in his own penalty area. No penalty would have been given, because he hadn't changed his body shape or anything. You can't have laws where it's handball at one end of the pitch and not the other one. They've got themselves in a total mess, I'm afraid, with VAR. I was a big supporter of it, but it needs to be stripped down like an engine and completely rethought by FIFA.
And is that going to help referees, Shaka, and everybody else to understand the rule again?
I think the law continues to evolve, and as interpretation and applications and how they're used and misused become evident. But to Ian's point there, the Fulham incident is not a VAR issue. The Jagielka red card, that's down to the VAR. But the Fulham one, this is just about the law, how it was written and how it continues to be applied. And I was a part of the football advisory panel when we were redoing this handball law. And the feeling was you didn't want a hand to be involved in the scoring of a goal, whether inadvertently or not. And I think the key to this kind of rewriting of the law is accidental handball by a teammate. No one wants to see a goal scored with the arm, whether it's intentional or by accident. And you can look at the Llorente goal for Spurs a couple of years ago against City, Neymar in the Champions League final against Juventus a few years ago. Those are the ones that law was trying to address. I think it's key here that the difference or the update is that accidental handball by a teammate does not disallow the goal when it's eventually scored. It doesn't change the debate, because I can already anticipate that there'll be an accidental handball that takes the ball out of the path of a defender who's getting ready to clear and into the path of a striker to score. While that might be applauded now, if that happens to you or your team, you again have those same question marks, which is why, to David Ellery's point, handball will always be grey because it's subjective. Well,
let's bring the interpretation of the defensive handball in these clarifications. Handball should only be considered if the position of their arm is not a consequence of the player's body movement for that specific situation. By having their hand or arm in such a position, the player takes a risk of their hand or arm being hit by the ball and being penalised. So what do you make of that, Needum?
Honestly, I hate the handball stuff. I absolutely detest it. Just because, so we have sort of buzzwords and talking points like unnatural and so on, but we never look at people's arms when there's no ball that's going towards it. The way that some people move, especially to be talking about defensive ones now, what is the benefit of a defender stopping a ball with his hand in an area where he's trying to defend? That sounded like so much jargon to me. But then to be putting that in the hands of a referee to make the call and say, well, yeah, you were in an unnatural position because you did this and you did that. It's nonsense. And it's the subjectivity which is going to really affect me and lots of other viewers here. And as sort of Shaka was alluding to as well, we have the law, we have the interpretation, but then we still have the emotion ourselves where we can look at one thing and say, yeah, that's handball. And then look at it in the context of how it's affected a game and say that it's not handball. If something hits someone's hand and they're about to run through on goal, if someone hits the defender's hand and somebody's going to run through on goal, you want to feel like that's a handball because it stops someone running through on goal. But if there was no intention, then it shouldn't be handball. But then all of a sudden you've got a complete divide and you're left with like the referee making a call and it's going to upset half the people that are watching. So as I say, you've triggered me. I absolutely detest handballs. So I'm going to leave the mic and just say I'm glad that I'm retired.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.